Our opening thought this morning comes from Parker Palmer from Let Your Life Speak, Listening for the Voice of Vocation. Palmer writes, "We are exploring together. We are cultivating a garden together, backs to the sun. The question is a hoe in our hands, and we are digging beneath the hard and crusty surface to the rich humus of our lives." Our next reading comes from Bill McKibben, from an interview of him. And this is titled, the interview came under the title, "Be a Little Less of an Individual." McKibben says, "I think it took the movement a long time." The movement he's talking about is the climate movement, climate justice movement. "I think it took the movement a long time to understand that as important as individual action is, it is not the way that we're going to solve this crisis. We're way past the point that you can make the math work one Prius at a time. So I think my mantra in the most recent years has become, the most important thing an individual can do is be a little less of an individual and join together with others in movements large enough to make change. We don't need everybody in the same place. We don't need 51% of the people all the time. We do need some strong segment of the population really engaged in this fight and working hard." Our next reading is from the Nobel Peace Laureate Maria Ressa, from her book, How to Stand Up to a Dictator. Ressa writes, "There are solutions. In the long term, the most important thing is education. So start now. In the medium term, it's legislation and policy to restore the rule of law in the virtual world, to create a vision of the internet that binds us together instead of tearing us apart. In the short term, now, it's just us. Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. And that begins with trust." Perhaps we all have a time in our lives where we learned a lesson that collaborating is often better than going it alone, almost always better than going it alone. For me, that lesson would often come in relation to the experience of sports, team sports especially. I played basketball and tennis and baseball, but got pretty good at tennis, not quite as good at basketball. But I do remember playing tennis. I had a really good doubles partner for a couple of years. We did really well together, and we would beat some other doubles teams where it was, I think, quite obvious that individually the other two people we were playing were better than us individually. They could beat us quite easily in singles when we were playing one-on-one with them. But when we played them in doubles, we often would win those matches against those better singles players because of the fact that we trusted each other, we knew each other, we had worked together, we collaborated together, we knew how to communicate with each other, and we were able to succeed in those doubles matches and get a pretty high ranking in the state. Same thing for basketball. There were times when I've certainly seen a basketball team that had less talent, perhaps less athletic ability, less physicality, but because they worked together, they passed the ball, they moved the ball, they were able to beat a team that had better athletes, who were individually better basketball players, but as a team, the team that collaborated was able to win. Well, when it comes to the most important things in life, and sports are not the most important things in life, although when you're in them, they think they're so important. And for those of us in Oklahoma City, sports seems so important for many right now, given the NBA championships that are taking place right now with our Oklahoma City Thunder. But when it comes to the most important things in life, and those things that we have to face that are the most urgent challenges of our time, we cannot go it alone. Community and collaboration are key to our personal and our social well-being. As Maria Ressa was pointing out, to create lasting and sustainable positive change in our society will require systemic transformation that will take committed efforts in the medium term and in the long term in relation, as she says, to education and in relation to legislative work for changes in policy and law for a more just, peaceful, participatory, and sustainable society. She focuses in on the internet and social media because of the huge influence that that's having on our society right now. It's going to take education, it's going to take legislation to make positive change. But in order to have the opportunity to bring about the medium-term and the long-term systemic transformation that is so desperately needed, in the short term, we will have to relentlessly address the immediate existential threat that we are facing in relation to the survival of our democratic republic. And this requires collaboration. Collaboration of millions of persons. Yesterday, over 11 million persons, 11 million people collaborated together to address the immediate existential threat that our democratic republic is facing. The over 11 million people who collaborated together yesterday do not agree about everything. They come from different backgrounds. They have different orientations to religion. They have diverse political perspectives, but they trusted each other enough to collaborate. And their collaboration led to one of the largest mass protests in the history of the United States. Perhaps the only one that was larger that I know of was Earth Day in 1970, which I don't know if that was a protest. It certainly was a demonstration, but about 20 million people came out on Earth Day in 1970. Over 11 million people yesterday were able to collaborate in the midst of their differences because they realized that true freedom is a common project. It's a project that requires solidarity, a recognition that our freedom is connected together. Your freedom is as important as my freedom. And if we are all to be free, we must be concerned about the freedom of each other. That's why it's a common project that requires solidarity, to make sure that all persons have the same opportunity to be free. The over 11 million people that came together realized that true freedom is not simply about being free from something, free from oppression, although that's part of it, but it's also about being free to do something, free to do good, free to express values, free to express virtues, being free to establish justice for all persons, especially the most vulnerable among us. Over 11 million people were able to collaborate together yesterday because we recognize that we cannot stand alone. If we're going to stand up to what's happening in our society, if we're going to stand up against American fascism, if we're going to stand up against a dictator, we cannot stand up to that alone. We need each other. And if we continue to build a movement for true freedom, for justice for all, we will defeat American fascism together. The nonviolent collaboration against American fascism must be sustained over time if we are to have any chance to save our democratic republic. The collaborative work will surely have its ups and its downs, and perhaps even significant disappointments. American fascism did not develop overnight, and it will take time and deep sacrifice to overcome it. If we are to fully overcome American fascism, we must collaborate together, not only to have protests, not only to have large events together, we have to collaborate together also to transform the conditions and the systems that have allowed American fascism to develop and gain strength and power over so many people within our society. One of the key factors that kept the United States from falling into fascism, or for that matter, communism or any other totalitarian system in the 20th century, one of the key factors that helped us from falling into those extremes was the development of systems and associations, unions, antitrust laws, labor laws, Social Security, a progressive tax system, state-funded education, civil rights laws. These systems, these associations that limited wealth inequality and thus mitigated against the extreme economic injustice that fuels revolution and populism. Think about the extremes that fueled revolution and populism in the 20th century. Many of them, if not most of them, were connected to extreme wealth inequality, or at least other conditions that were creating stress, that were creating desperation for a large number of people within society. So our ability to mitigate against that extreme wealth inequality for many decades, at least in the 20th century, may have been what saved us from falling into those extremes. But since at least 1981, we've been dismantling the very systems and associations that have kept us relatively free. And now, under the mantra of making America great again, we are accelerating the wealth inequality that has led to the reality of American fascism that we are now experiencing. If we do not address the extreme wealth inequality in our society and the systems that perpetuate it, we will continue to see the rise of various forms of political extremism that feed off the fear of a desperate populace. If we cannot create the conditions for economic justice, we will very likely never experience political peace. As Maria Ressa reminds us, in the short term, we need to collaborate to be able to stand up to a dictator. But in the medium term and the long term, we must do the hard and sustained work of education and legislative changes in order to transform the underlying unjust conditions within our society that keep driving us to extremes and driving us apart from each other. Eventually, we may find our way to a more just, more participatory, a more sustainable, a more beloved community in the future. But that will never happen unless we keep collaborating in the fiercely urgent moment that we are currently facing. We must continue to collaborate in this fiercely urgent moment. May we all have the courage and the commitment that we need to continue to collaborate, because we will not be able to do this alone. We will need each other. We can only do this together. The world aches for us to join together and bring about healing, toil for justice, and produce ever-increasing love. This is our calling. Go forth and act accordingly. Amen.